One of the problems that many people have, not just young people, but middle-aged and older, is they have a problem with faith. Sometimes they don't believe in God, or they're having trouble believing in God, and many times people who may have faith, when things get difficult, they start to doubt. Now, personally for me, just to give you a brief rundown, why do I believe? Well, when I was young, around 13, back in the 70s, when dinosaurs roamed the earth, it's funny when I talk to the teenagers and I mention things like in the 70s, they're like, get this look at the 70s? The 60s? Like, that long? Like, wow, Father, you're ancient. Yeah, I guess so. In any event, I had started to hear about atheism, and I started to think, well, is there any sense to atheism? Now, in my opinion, if you go on the side of disbelief in God, you have more troubles intellectually and logically and philosophically than if you do believe there is a God. Because then you got to explain how something came from nothing. And that's pretty hard. If you have a box and there's nothing in it, unless someone puts something in it, there's never going to be anything in it. And that's how the universe is. The universe is like a giant box, and God puts something in it. And they say, oh, the Big Bang. Well, if there was a Big Bang, if that's the way God created, who pulled the trigger? He did. Now, for me, I saw a very beautiful sunset one night, evening, and I was up in the tree. I used to be able to climb trees pretty good. I was like a little monkey. Of course, I've gained a little weight right now and probably need a giant redwood for me to climb it these days. But in any event, I watched the sunset and I looked at all the colors, you know, the yellow and the rose and the orange. It was just so beautiful the way the light beams were coming from behind the clouds. I thought, there's no way that's an accident. God put that there. There's too much design, too much artwork going on there. And then from that, so that's one of the most significant, I don't know that there's a more important decision we can make in life is whether or not there's a God. Then if we decide there is a God, the next thing is, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to decide, okay, there's a God, all right, no big deal. We put that in the shelf in the corner of our mind and our heart and our soul, and we just kind of go on ignoring him as if he wasn't there? Well, that's not good, because the gift of faith is meant to be used. God doesn't belong in the back shelf of our mind and heart and soul. He belongs in the center of our heart and mind and soul and life. Because if he's really there, and I believe he is, then we should be giving him the utmost attention and importance, because we're hoping to be with him forever in the next world. So that's the first thing, is the beauty of creation. Then, when I started to pray the rosary and I started to get answers that couldn't be explained away by coincidence. I mean, I'd be asking for specific things on specific days, and then when it happened, I was like, wow, he's listening. He's there. He knows what's going on. And I've had, I don't know, since I was 14, a few hundred years ago, I have had an incredible number of prayer answers, the answers to my prayer that could not be explained away by coincidence, just piled on like a mile high. And so, I'm interacting with the living God. I'm talking to him and he's answering. I believe he's there. I've dedicated my life to that belief. Now, Scripture itself, gives us a couple of interesting passages here. Wisdom 13. For all men were by nature foolish who were ignorant of God, and who from the good things seen not succeed in knowing him who is, and from studying the works did not then discern the artist. Well, that's pretty clear. Verse 5. From the greatness and the beauty of created things, their original author by analogy is seen. So that's pretty clear, pretty similar to what I was saying. Romans chapter 1, verse 20. Ever since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes of eternal power and divinity have been able to be understood and perceived in what he has made. As a result, they have no excuse. For although they knew God, they did not accord him glory as God or give him thanks. Instead, they became vain in their reasoning, and their senseless minds were darkened. Now, darkness is kind of a symbol for evil. Light is a symbol for good. Tonight, kind of dark and rainy out there. Who likes that? I don't like darkness. I like a bright, sunny day, blue skies, all that good stuff. So, we don't want to live in the darkness. Now, I was listening to Father Spitzer giving a talk, and by the way, I don't know if you're on the list or not, but you might want to be on the list. I send out links to various YouTube videos that have good spiritual quality. One of the prerequisites for the video I send out is it's not one of mine, so don't worry about that. Father's going to be sending me all his videos. No. If you want to watch mine, you can go to my channel. It's on there. So, but you might want to email Penny if you're not on the list, and because I send them to her and she sends them out to everyone that's on the list. So you might want to get, some of these talks are pretty good. So, Father Spitzer was talking about how the scientists, there was about 50-50 with the scientists who didn't believe in God or were atheists, and then about 50% were theists, believed in God. That the younger scientists now are becoming more and more believers. So we're up to 61%. That's an 11% or so increase. And the same thing with doctors. Doctors have gone up quite a bit. I think 75% of doctors believe there's a God. And he said that the near-death experiences that have been going on also has been an influence. A lot of people that die and come back talk about having conversations with Jesus and things like that. Now, there are a few what I call deceptive near-death experiences that people claim to have died, and then they've got all this stuff that's basically an attack on traditional belief in God, attack on Jesus, attack on the Catholic Church. I think those are people making stuff up and playing games. That's just my opinion. So, but again, if you're going to go on the side that there is no God, I think you're in a position of having a lot more to try to explain, because anyone with common sense knows that something just doesn't come from nothing. So the universe is a whole lot more than something. It's incredible, the detail, that we have, and life only comes from life. Where do babies come from? Live parents. Life comes from life. So that's another thing. I remember when I was in the Air Force, one time I asked how many people believed in God, and I was shocked by the number of my fellow airmen that didn't believe in God, and they all said the same thing. It was evolution. Well, evolution has a lot of problems, and there's more and more scientists that are coming out showing the problems with it. And one of the biggest problems is it's not observable. Oh, well, they like to throw the word millions and millions of years. Okay, what about now? Have any women given birth to something that's not a human being lately? And then it mated with something else that wasn't a human being, they started a new species? So there's a microevolution. So if I was to move, because my ancestors are all from Northern Europe, we're super white, okay? So when I go to the beach and I take my shirt off, the sun hits me and it blinds everyone. I have to put their sunglasses on. So now if I was to move to the equator, I'd start to get some I'd start to get some pigment in my skin. Then my offspring would have that and so on. And eventually they would darken. That's what's called microevolution, a change within the species. Macroevolution, from a change from one species to another, is not observable, and the evidence is quite questionable. So right now, there is no observation of anywhere in nature, in far as history goes, for several thousand years, of there being any actual evolution occurring now or in the past few thousand years. So if they want to throw millions and millions of years, all right, so how come it's not happening now? It just stopped? How convenient. Okay, but we want to believe in it that it happened before, but then it just stopped. So it started from nothing. So the traditional arguments from St. Thomas Aquinas are what we call the uncaused cause, the unmoved mover. If you have a pile of dominoes and you hit the first one and knock it over, eventually the last one will fall over. So if you trace it backwards, you have to find the first domino that fell and something that moved it in order for it to happen. So the universe, in order to have motion, in order to have an effect of the effect of matter and life and so forth, there had to be a cause. It didn't just happen out of nothing. you know? And there's different levels of life. So there's the cosmological, where the planets and things like that come, and then there's vegetation. Where did that come from? And then there's animal life. All of a sudden, okay, we got Rover running around, and then all of a sudden there's human life. And we have Beethoven and Einstein and things like that. And we have a level of self-awareness, of consciousness. And so that's a whole nother level of existence. How do you explain that? Where does that come from? Now, one of the things I've been thinking about lately is what I call the purpose of life argument. You know, you got the argument from motion, things like that, the argument from cause and effect, the argument of the watchmaker. If you found a watch, it's very, Swiss watch, you'd know that somebody had to put it together. It's too complex. The universe is incredibly complex, especially on a biological level. So the idea of this somehow just randomly happening out of nothing, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, you know. So, but I remember when I was in one of my philosophy classes at Rutgers, I got into arguments all the time. So, all these atheists, you know, and there I am believing in God, and getting into arguments. Good times, back in the 80s. So, anyway, this girl, I was trying to say, you know, without God, life doesn't have a purpose. And this girl who was an atheist, she said, life itself is the purpose. And I thought, you know, that reminds me of my confirmation students who come to me and I say to them, can you tell me what confirmation is? And I sit there and I think for a minute, and they say, confirmation is when you get confirmed. Wow, that's profound. That answered the question. So when you define something by itself, that doesn't really, life is its own purpose. No. In order to have a sufficient meaning and purpose in life, we are deep beings. We have a grasp of the infinite and a sense of goodness, you know? And people keep trying to put science against religion. You know, they're in two different departments. Now, if I go into the maternity ward with a machine gun and shoot all the babies, you'd say, well, Father, that's just horrible. I say, yeah, how do you know? Did science tell you it was wrong to kill babies? Science doesn't deal with right and wrong and moral decisions. Science deals with trying to figure out how things in nature work. And then sometimes it tries to figure out who put them there. And then it's entering into the area of the theologian. It doesn't do too good. So the idea that science is going to provide us with the answers is absurd. So what is the purpose of life? Life itself? No. I'm sorry. A little atheist girl back in the 80s in Rutgers trying to tell me that's the purpose. No, it doesn't make sense. Okay? So a purpose and meaning involves a thing going towards a specific goal for which it's intended. So we as human beings have been created by a creator, and we have a goal which we are to go towards. One of the goals is goodness, which is something science can't define. Science can't tell you what's right and wrong. Science is going to tell you it's wrong to tell a lie. That's out of its realm. So, but we know because God has put a sense of right and wrong into our soul, into our conscience, our character, our being, so we have a sense of right and wrong. So one of the purposes of life is to do the right thing. And God has given us a supplement to our natural reasoning, which I discussed in the beginning, you know, how we can reason to the existence of the Creator based on the beautiful art of nature from God. You know, God, every night, God, with his finger of God, paints a beautiful sunset himself. With his finger, he designed every human being, all the men with their strength, all the women with their beauty. That's from the finger of God, you know. Even the FBI recognizes the uniqueness of creation because they'll use our fingerprints, which is unique to each person, as a way to catch us if we commit a crime. So there's an example of how each of us is unique, created by God, for a specific purpose, to do good in our place in time and reality that God puts us. So life, if you take God away, what happens to life? Oh boy, I can't wait to die so I can go into the ground and cease to have consciousness, and all the relationships that I built with my family and friends in life become nothing. I started out as nothing, I go back to nothing, and that's such an exciting way to look at life, being an atheist. I'm just basically nothing with the consciousness for a short period of time, then I go back to being nothing. No, God gives life meaning and purpose that makes sense. We were created and given this higher consciousness, this self-awareness, and we form loving relationships with family and friends and our God. And he loves us as he does. He answers our prayers. And so that relationship, that life that he has given us, continues on into the next world where it gets even better. And what did Jesus say to St. Dismas, the good thief? Today you'll be with me in paradise. But here, while we're in this world, we've got to struggle and deny ourselves and take up the cross and deal with stumbling blocks that hopefully, if we can deal with it properly, can turn into stepping stones to heaven. So yeah, this world is rough. It's meant to be rough. We're learning how evil is. What is evil? Evil is separation from God. Evil is sin, separation from goodness. And what is God? God is love, the source of all love, the love behind all love. He is truth, the source of all truth. He is life. He is beauty. He is strength. He is everything for us. And so we came from God, we were created by God, and we're meant to be with God. As St. Augustine says, our hearts are restless, O Lord, until they rest in you. Psalm 62. In God alone, is my heart and life fulfilled. In God alone can I find my peace and my goodness. So I think if we look at life honestly, with a recognition of this life being connected to the next life, and not that, the atheist, I die, and then, it's so exciting, I get to stop existing, and I have no consciousness, and no friends, and I'm gone forever. How exciting. Seems to me atheism lacks purpose and meaning and logic and common sense. So, like I said, if you stop believing in God, you have more philosophical problems to deal with than when you believe in God. So I think we should recognize the importance of our faith and recognize that God is there and respond with a life of prayer and obedience.